We can start now. And hey, everyone. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. And welcome to another LambdaTest webinar. This time, we're going to talk about how you can overcome test automation challenges using codeless automation. Before we get started, let's quickly cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, we'll have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this webinar. We will try to answer as many questions as we can for you. So please make use of this Q&A feature and feel free to drop us a question at any time during this webinar. This session is going to be an hour long. So if you need to drop off, this webinar is recorded and will be shared with you on your email. And you can also find the entire recording of this session over our YouTube channel. Having said that, let's get to it. So myself, I'm Harshit Paul. I manage product and growth at LambdaTest. And I'll be the host for your webinar. Joining us today is Sune Ingsing, who's a senior evangelist at LEAPWORK. Sune has more than 20 years of experience working with business process development as well as IT architecture for enterprises. In addition, he has extensive project management experience from both government and telecom industry. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure Sune will have a tremendous background in explaining himself better. So hi, Sune, thanks for taking your time, and it's great to have you here.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Yeah, but I think you nailed it pretty well. So with a fairly comprehensive background of process and business development, both focusing, coming from IT. So that's been the pinnacle of what I've been doing for the last years. And now it's a logical step to now automating the whole thing. So be interested.
Awesome. So with that said, let's quickly discuss our today's agenda. We've all had our fair share of challenges when it comes to automation testing, and it's what we're going to have a look at first. Next, we'll see how we can overcome these test automation challenges using codeless automation. After that, Sune will give us an in-depth introduction of how LEAPWORK works, and we'll get to see all the amazing things that we can do with it. After that, you'll get to see how you can integrate both LambdaTest and LEAPWORK for better browser coverage, and that part will be covered by me. And as I said, at the end, we'll have a Q&A session to address all your queries. With that, I pass on my mic to you, Sune. Please take it over.
Thank you. Yeah, so today, telling you the story on an introduction to LEAPWORK. So I believe, Paul, you're driving the slides, right?
Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that again, right?
Cheers. So just waiting for that to pop up and jump into the slide. And I think before getting started with the full introduction thingy, let's talk about those challenges associated with getting automation up and running in the first place. And certainly this is something coming from the experiences and the conversations that we've had with a great deal of our more than 400 clients around the world, because typically what we see when they approach us is that they have had their share of experiences working with automation, typically around the context of homegrown frameworks or maybe other script-based approaches. Just to put some wording on why that seems to be a recurring challenge for these companies. Now, starting with the top bullet there, test automation frameworks not matching the pace of development. And what that means, of course, is that let's say that you're working agile, but even if, in slower types of development processes, the conversation around, creating automation on the side is, at least from a GUI perspective, is a fairly hypothetical one, simply coming from the time, how much time will take you to actually build this automation and add that on top of your pipeline, either in terms of calendar days or in terms of additional resources you need to create this particular type of functionality. What we see with these frameworks is that they can never keep up. They will never move with the pace that you'd like them to do. And obviously, as a result of that, you find that these frameworks end up taking more time, and even in some cases, even more time than it would actually do to test it manually. You will see frameworks that are rigid will not be able to keep up with the changes in the application space, of course, coming from the fact that they're moving very slow. And you will also, and I think this is the most important problem, you will find that these frameworks become these black boxes themselves for the organization's perspective, both in terms of who can actually run them, who knows what to do, who can figure out how to make any changes to it, so that it'll keep up with the scope that you want to change, and so forth and so forth. So there are many typical challenges associated with operating these frameworks, and basically it's my hypothesis any day of the week, there's simply no way where you can program a framework which will be as flexible and adaptive to that you want it to be, to prepare for all these different factors coming from changes in the application space and the applications and the changes in the framework itself, and so forth and so forth. So there's simply no way. And this is the recognition, as I say, that many of our clients have realized, and then they may be looking into either script-based tools or adding to the frameworks perspective, obviously creating purely script-based frameworks, which basically I think is the king among those types of frameworks, which ends up taking more time to drive than it actually does to test things manually, simply because it's so extensive in both in time and effort to create these scripts and keep them functioning. And basically, we are now talking about skilled developers that you need to have in place to actually do this. And from an organization's perspective, certainly, I think you'll find that most managers will say that they would rather have these skilled people working on creating new functionality and value-bringing operations to the business. So from a QA perspective, of course, this means you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. These resources are hard to find, they're scarce, and you need to prioritize every single thing that you want to add to the framework, just as you would if you were to create functionality on yourself. Which of course speaks into the third bullet. Custom automation framework are difficult to scale and are limited in scope because, at the end of the day, we're creating another chunk of code that we need to keep alive. We need to maintain it. And creating such a type of architecture and software technology that will easily adapt to these changes is a huge challenge and requires very skilled developers. So it's not just something that you go ahead and build. And again, these are the experiences learned the hard way by some of these very competent and capable clients that we are talking to. And of course, at the end of the day, the final bullet there, frameworks are person dependent. They have a short lifespan, and obviously those two goes hand in hand, because in many situations, what we see and what we're talking to these clients, they have these frameworks running around, but they've lost that last person in their team who could actually figure out how to operate it, which obviously means either re-engineering it from scratch or basically just retiring it. And so we see lifespans down to 1 year or 2 years based on a huge investment. And we still have conversations with clients in the consideration stage of building a framework, and I think this is one of the arguments that makes the biggest impression on them, because that thing of managing people and skills in a longer term is not typically something that most managers are caring too much about, but it is a real issue when trying to keeping these frameworks alive, since that they are so dependent on individuals. It becomes a real deal. And obviously also the situation that many of these automation engineers are very aware of the situation they've managed to create for themselves, which again reflects there's a salary side to this as well. All right, next slide, please. So what do you then in return get from working with codeless automation? Well, first and foremost, I think one of the bullets that is really not here, but obviously I'm going to be covering that in more detail just in a little while, is of course that you have the ability, when you do codeless, first and foremost, you can expand the audience. You can add more people into the play. And when we're talking to organizations, and the scope of tests that they want to automate is not within the hundreds, but it's in the thousands, multiple factors of thousands really, in huge enterprise organizations. They have a huge scope. So getting more people in there to contribute is key. Now, once we've covered that as a side thing, just have a quick look on these bullets, and I'll just highlight some of them. I think one of the important parts is actually the top one: easy handover, short learning curve. When you create an opportunity for more people to collaborate and to contribute, needless to say, you also need to make a platform that makes it easy for them to be inspired by each other's work, by it needs to be easy to fetch a given functionality and just use that as it was your own, right? And add to that, expand on that, to create more value in the QA process. That needs to be easy. It needs to be easy to learn. it needs to be fast. It needs to be something that you can do fairly quickly. That whole discussion of whether or not you want to do automation as part of your development process, well, it needs to be about something else than how long time it takes to actually do it. It needs to be whether or not it's the right thing to do at a given time, looking at the application, looking at what it is that you're building. Those are the relevant discussions if you want to create true value as part of your QA automation considerations. And obviously, if you can get that no-code uniform approach to automation across different application spaces, across different technologies, I'm looking at bullet number 4 here. If you can successfully create a unified and fairly uniform approach to automate vast ranges of technologies and application spaces with one solution, then of course, again, we're talking into easiness of use, speed of use, learning curve reduced significantly, because it needs to be a discussion of what it is that you want to automate from a business perspective, as opposed to, gee, I wonder how hard this particular application is to get around when talking at it from an automation perspective. So those are the things that I think is makes sense to highlight among these bullets when talking about the initial considerations and challenges when embarking upon automation. Right, next slide, please. And well, you can't help but having added some words already into the play when talking about automation. And of course, no secret, we're coming from the no-code side of things. So from our perspective, and again, talking to our multiple clients around the world, we see that the challenge that they're ultimately facing is the fact that the predominant or traditional tools to automation requires coding to some extent, in some degree, which ultimately, from a company perspective, prevents scaling of automation, because we're limiting the number of users who can actively contribute to this. Now, don't get me wrong, especially in this fine audience on this webinar, there's nothing wrong with coding, for sure. I mean, the coding is the reason for us being here in the first place, because we're working with the applications that we want to validate and ensure are working just great. But the problem is that most testers are out there, especially the skilled ones, well, their focus tends to be on business processes. Their focus tends to be on how the applications that they're working with supports those business processes and brings value to the business, as opposed to traditional automation as what we see here on the screen, which is more about figuring out individual buttons. What are they called? How do you operate them? Do I click it this or that way? Can I invoke it, or do we need to invoke it? And so forth, which is anything but really looking into true business value. Right, next slide, please. So our response to that is to create a completely new type of language for all automation performers out there. So as I said previously, we want to widen the audience for this. On behalf of the enterprise, we want to make it possible for more people to join the agenda of creating true and scalable automation on behalf of the enterprises without writing a single line of code. And our response, the way that we want to do that, is using this visual language, which we have created and developed, which basically allows the non-technical users to contribute with automation through a language of their own, which is the business process. So imagine being able to draw a business process-like flow on the screen, which is stating what it is that you want to do as a user. So I'm clicking on something, I'm doing something, I'm typing something, I'm looking for something, or whatever it is. And through that, you obtain automation. So that's the simple goal of what we want to do, inspired by a uniform language which most business users can relate to, which of course is the business process. All right, next slide, please. Now, one thing is to create such an approach. Another thing is to make that scale truly across, not just in terms of how many flows you can build and how fast you can adapt to it from an individual application perspective, but also hugely importantly for many organizations. Of course, we're not talking about individual systems. We're counting systems in the hundreds or even the thousands. So if you want to automate, if you want to create automation across this range of technologies and applications, needless to say, as part of that learning curve experience, we need to make it a fairly uniform and uniform approach to building these automation efforts. So that's why you'll see that this automation language that we've created is operating the exact same way, irrespectively of which automation technology it is that you want to automate, be it stuff running in the browser space using Selenium, be it Windows applications installed on your desktop, be it proprietary technologies such as SAP, or legacy or virtual technologies such as Citrix, mainframes, and what have you. It's the same fundamental approach. It needs to be sort of used to express automation here, again, looking at it from the perspective of the business user. So that's something that also obviously we're going to be covering during the demo. Right, next one. And speaking of demos, one coming up right now. So as Paul promised, just a short introduction to how you build automation using LEAPWORK. And then once we got that out of the way, we're going to return and talk about some of the strengths coming from LEAPWORK and LambdaTest. So really looking forward to sharing this with you guys. Right, so I'm going to try and share my screen, Paul.
All right.
Okie doke. Here we go. One Windows desktop coming up. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce LEAPWORK for you. So this is LEAPWORK Studio. This is the place that you go to build and design your automation flows. So that visual language that I've been talking so much about is coming up in just a second. In this unified GUI that you see here, all aspects of automation is covered. So obviously building, designing automation is here. Managing all the assets and resources of it, including version management, is here as well. Setting it up for execution, so orchestrating it, either using built-in scheduler or as part of your CI/CD pipeline, is also here, including executing the flows in a wide range of contexts and environments, including cloud-based ones like LambdaTest is also here, and obviously also following up on quality of execution from the perspective of the individual flows and reporting sections is also covered. So you can see it's a true 360 perspective to your automation effort. We're going to be spending the time today right here. This is what we call the canvas. This is where we design and draw the automation flows. And without further ado, let's get started. This is how a flow looks in its earliest stage, completely fresh. There's only one of these boxes, going back to that visualization of a business flow, right? You had the boxes with the arrows between them. Coincidentally, we call these boxes building blocks. And the first building block is here. That's the start building block, showing you where stuff begins. So when I hover above that, you see this connector appearing, which basically allows you to click and drag from here. And when you do that, you can see that we immediately start to draw the beginnings of this particular flow. Now, what I'm going to be doing now is doing a very simple, but also very representative demonstration from a tester's perspective. I'm going to log on to something. I'm going to be logging on to Salesforce. And then I'm going to be validating that login. So checking that it's the right profile coming up as a result of that login. And then very shortly, I will also show you, okay, then convert this feature into something that you can just reuse again and again. And I'm going to be showing you very quickly also how to fully parameterize the flow. So without further ado, let's get started. So letting go of my mouse, this menu appears, which allows me to quickly start the recorder, which of course will allow me to build this flow very quickly. So when I do that, stuff jumps into the background, except the little recorder widget down here, which is ready to start inspecting the actions that you do. So all I need to do is choose whether or not to start web-based or Windows application-based automation. Now, the use case is in Salesforce, so needless to say, that needs to go into the browser space. So I'll type that right in here and hit start, which will launch a browser, which will navigate towards salesforce.com and allow me to begin building automation. Now, what I would like you guys to do is put yourself in that seat of that non-technical user. Again, the use case is to log in. So how to go about telling the application what to do? Well, from a user's perspective, of course, you know exactly where to go. I need to go into the username field, and you can see LEAPWORK is showing you where it is that you're actively going. So into the username field, I just click on the mouse, LEAPWORK inspects it and suggests an action that you can do. So I'm going to choose the type action here and enter in my username. Just going to type that, make sure I don't do too many typos. Of course, that won't help. hit apply, the value goes straight in, continue with the password. So clicking it on that field, choosing, oops, and not missing the button again. So let's just try again here, type text, this time, of course, it being a password, and then simply entering in the password I would use as a user. And remember, I'm going to show you how to parameterize this once we're done. And then we're ready to log in. So I'll continue to click on the login button, choose click. It's a left click for this one as well. So hitting apply for that, and then waiting for Salesforce to successfully log me in. And as you can see, once that's logged in, I want to do the last step of the test, which is to assert that it's the right profile name popping up. In Salesforce, the profile information is behind the mascot here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And once I click on that, the profile menu appears, and then I'm going to ask LEAPWORK to validate the profile name coming up in this field here. So I'm just going to ask LEAPWORK to find it, like so, checking that, which actually concludes the flow. So I'm now ready to return to my widget and choose save and close. And LEAPWORK will then have designed this full visual flow for you, taking you through the steps of launching the browser, entering username and password, and looking for the profile name. Now, before we do anything else, let's just quickly take it out for a spin and test if it actually does what we want it to do. So hitting the play button here, LEAPWORK is going to restart the browser, which will then navigate to Salesforce, of course, and now in an automated fashion, enter the required credentials to do the login. And then once logged in, check for the profile name there on the right and complete the automation. And what I wanted to show you coming out of that is the highly valuable information that you get to understand the quality and the ability of the automation flows to perform their job. And of course, I'm talking into that hugely important maintenance agenda, which has much to do with understanding, looking across your landscape of potentially thousands of automation flows in the event that they break, which of course they will, because we're testing stuff. How fast can you then understand the nature of that event and correct it and get your automation back into running order? Now, this interface that you see right here is tailored to support you in doing that, just that, as fastly and efficiently as possible. So first of all, you have a video recording here. So full video recording of the executed flow is available here on the left. It's accompanied by detailed logging here on the right. And notice when I scrub back and forth in the video, you see the log following suit. So you have this direct and interactive connection between a given event and what you see occurring on the screen here. Specifically, here's me typing in the password as an event, and you can see the field being highlighted here on the video recording. So you can always see how the application is behaving during the course of automation. And then you have the flow itself. Now imagine you have a flow which is your entire order to purchase value chain. So it's going to be a long flow. Then understanding exactly where am I can actually be a challenge in itself, not so using LEAPWORK. If you look at the flow here, you can see this building block, typing in the password is kind of lighted up. It has this orange highlight to it corresponding to where we are in the log. Let's click on the event where I type in the username. So clicking on that, notice how the highlighting moved and now shows this one. And again, if I scrub through the video, again, notice how the highlight is also moving along. Now, taking these three sets of information, the video, the log, the canvas, it makes it possible for you also, again, as a non-technical user, to drive that maintenance agenda, to make sure that in the event of failure, understanding quickly, okay, then where did it break? What do I need to do? So typically how it begins is that you simply do, you look for the failed event, you click on the last active entry, that building block lights up. That's then where you go to do your debugging. Okay, and last thing, you might wonder why it says failed down here, because obviously and clearly, we managed to log in. And that's because we haven't declared yet what does it take to do a successful run. And now that I'm satisfied that it's actually doing what I wanted to do, I'll just proceed here to add a path building block. With that in place, LEAPWORK knows that automation is complete and successful, and it will stop it at that. Okay, so let me cover the next pieces of information. So parameterizing this fully, so making sure that it scales, and converting at least parts of this flow into a reusable functionality. And let's start with that, because obviously creating reusability, it has many facets to it. So first and foremost, of course, it allows those people working with me on automation to fetch an asset and reuse that. So my work is now accelerated coming from that. But QA-wise, reusing components, it also means that, again, if you take, for instance, as an example, your entire order to purchase flow, if you can convert that into a reusable object, then that particular activity is now executed in the exact same way across potentially hundreds of test cases, which in itself drives significant amount of quality. So it needs to be fast, it needs to be easy to do this. And the way that you create reusable functionality in LEAPWORK, you simply select the building blocks that you want to use, you right-clicking on any of them, you create what we call a subflow, and I'm going to call this one log into Salesforce, like this, hit save. And the first thing you'll notice is that the entire functionality is then wrapped into one single building block, which of course helps overview, but more importantly, it's now available from the building block menu. So if I type ahead, log into, you can see that the entire functionality is now ready to be inserted just with one click of a mouse in this flow or in any other flow where you feel that this particular feature is needed. Okay, so having covered reusability, let's talk about how you can then take it all the way towards best practice in terms of course, fully parameterizing it. Now, in order to do that, of course, you need to navigate data. So I'm just going to briefly introduce to you how you can work with data using LEAPWORK, starting with the database. So any ODBC-enabled database you have connected to your system is immediately available for LEAPWORK. So you can easily hook it up and use it bidirectionally to drive your automation. It could also be that you have maybe an API or a SOAP type endpoint, in which case you would use the HTTP request to attach yourself to that. And again, drive data back and forth as part of your automation efforts. And finally, maybe you have an executable file with a payload in it or something in PowerShell. Then, of course, you can use the command line to invoke such capabilities. For this demonstration, though, I'm going to use the preferred weapon of choice for testers everywhere, which, of course, is the simple Excel sheet. So we have a building block that will open up the contents of an Excel sheet, make it available for automation. Now, step one, of course, is to configure this to work with a relevant data source. I'm going to hit the select field here to import a file. And I'm just going to use this Salesforce sheet that I just happen to have lying around, hit define to allow me to visually simply open up the sheet and select the portions of data that I want to use to a given use case. So I'll just do a selection, just as I would in Excel. Check this one up here. This tells LEAPWORK that the first row is actually the header of the contents, which is then used by the building block to show you clearly which data will be coming out of each of these blue data connectors. Now, the next step is to actively incorporate the source into the flow itself. So I'm just going to make a little room here. So there's room for the Excel block to fit. Shift it up here, rewire these green connectors. The green arrows tells you the order of execution. It also tells you whether or not a building block is included in automation or at all. So if you have green arrows on both sides of it, it's actively being used as part of automation. Now with the with the data source configured and connected, let's grab the data and put it into the flow. So the username goes into the login, of course, as well as the password. So now that's connected. And finally, we also want to parameterize the last step, which is the assertion. Now, this is a slightly more complex use case. So let me just quickly take you through that, because obviously here in this use case here, I'm just typing stuff into empty fields. Here, however, I need to find a very specific data entity at a very specific time. So I need to actively manipulate those strategies that LEAPWORK calculates to identify where to find this object. It's not using the image to find it. It's not using a location. It's using an advanced locator strategy, which you can see in this image right here. This is what we call a strategy editor. So you have different strategies here on your left. Each strategy has a set of conditions to it, which is the ones that you can see down here. LEAPWORK is only using one of the strategies, but calculating several to cater for different use cases. And case in point here, I want to work with the profile name. So if I just shop through this list, I can see this strategy down here has my username here in profile text. And if I go to the conditions, you can see it here, clear as day, so to speak. So I'll fetch this value and I'll simply convert it to a field like so. Hit save. That field is then available. This building block will be looking for whatever string I'm driving into it. So I'll fetch that from the profile name and we have now a fully parameterized flow. Now you may recall the data source consisting of more entities than just one. So now the perfect use case is to simply iterate your way through these combinations of username and passwords to validate them all. Simply instruct the Excel source to iterate, converting it into a loop. So now it's going to use the login and the profile name once, twice, and 3 times, and so forth, until what point it reaches the end of the data set. Then we have this completed connector, and you can pass the flow once it's completed the full iteration through the data set. So that was a very quick story, how to build automation using LEAPWORK. And now to build you the perfect bridge to Paul's following segment, let me just show you then, because now I've built the flow, then I need to figure out, where to run it, and obviously also in a schedule context. I'm not going to be covering the scheduler. I'm just going to be saying that, of course, you can create a run list, which you will then attach to a schedule, which will allow you to use either LEAPWORK's built-in scheduler or attach it to your CI/CD context. Of course, LEAPWORK is built for that. But the important thing here is to say that using the ability to integrate to LambdaTest, you have a virtually limitless number of combinations of browsers, operating systems, and so forth, where you can execute this type of flow. So for instance, if you have advanced requirements for compatibility testing, et cetera, this is very easy to do. You go to the agents setting in LEAPWORK, and this is where I'm going to leave it to you, Paul. Suffice it to say, for now, here's an agent in LEAPWORK. An agent is the component executing flows on your behalf, and this is set up to do LambdaTest. And that's the perfect bridge for me to hand it back to you, and Paul, take it away.
Wow, thanks, Sune. That was great. And it's amazing what we can do, how convenient it has become with the help of LEAPWORK to run codeless automation. And I am sure our viewers must be feeling the same way. And thanks for building a base for me. And now I'll share my screen and I'll take it forward from there. Thank you. So as Sune said, we have the agents over here. And what these agents will do is you can basically connect it, set up an agent over here with LambdaTest, which will allow you to run your test over our Selenium grid. So before we get onto it, let me give you a quick demo, just a brief introduction rather about what LambdaTest is. So basically, we provide a cross-browser testing cloud, and we make sure that you get the right infrastructure in order to run your test cases on more than 2,000 plus browsers. It's a cloud-based infrastructure, so you don't have to worry about managing your in-house device lab or something. And you can focus on things that matter the most, which is testing, right? So that's what we make sure. We give you ready-to-fire machines, and you can come up and spin your automation test scripts, and you can see how they're running up on more than 2,000 devices. Because it would be difficult for somebody to say run install dozens of browsers in their system. And in some cases, it's not going to be possible as well, because say, for example, I have a Windows system with me, and it's not going to be possible for me to test my website on Safari if I have a Windows on me. Similarly, if I have a Mac OS, and it would be difficult for me to see how my website is spinning up on Internet Explorer. So that makes it a little challenging, and that's the problem statement that we are trying to solve with LambdaTest. And with that said, let me quickly set up an agent and show you how we can take this forward. So once you click on the new button and just go to LambdaTest over here, you can see the fields that you will get in this dialog box. And you can provide a title over here depending upon which configuration you're spinning or anything that goes up to you. So just say in case I want to run my test on Windows 10, so in that case, I'll just keep it LambdaTest Windows 10. Just to have it more meaningful, because I have multiple agents configured. I already practiced LEAPWORK earlier, so because of that, and just say demo, or just yeah. So having said that, we've mentioned the description and title to give us an idea about what this agent is all about. And now we need to provide a host name over here. Now, hostname, username, and access key is something that you will get from our platform itself. So you need to log into LambdaTest for that. So by default, when you log into LambdaTest, you'll be routed to real-time testing. This is basically a live interactive form of testing. But since we're concerned with automation, you need to hop onto this menu. And over here in automation, you need to go to this key icon. This key icon will provide you with a hub URL as well as username and access key. So for my hub URL, I will basically configure it as hub.lambdatest.com. And I can copy my my username from here. Similarly, access key. And what this URL is basically conveying, it's basically providing you the entire remote server URL. But since we are already adding the username and access key over here, we only need to focus on this part, which is the hub.lambdatest.com as our hostname. And it's something that we have already specified. So just clearing that out. And now that we have mentioned these details, I just need to decide on which platform I need to run my test. You can see we can decide on Mac OS, Android, iOS, any browser. And similarly, the latest variable here over would help me to run the test over the latest Chrome browser available at LambdaTest. And I can also decide which particular screen resolution I want to spin up my machine onto. And say, for example, I need to keep it on this resolution. And then I can go ahead and hit save. But before we do that, it's pivotal that we check if the connection is working fine or not. So make sure that you test this connection and get a green signal over here, which says that it's successful. So we're just waiting for that to happen. Yeah, so we can see that this is successfully connected. Now, what this means is basically you are authenticating to LambdaTest Grid based on your account, and this conveys that all the details provided here are valid in order to run your test cases on LambdaTest. So now that we have set it up, we can go ahead and save it. So here, if you can see, we have our new agent to run the test on Windows 10. Now I can go to flows. I already have the same flow that Sune was demonstrating right now to run Salesforce login. And if over here, you can see that the preview agent is where I can get the latest agent, which was added by me right now. So we can see that the LambdaTest Windows 10 agent is already reflecting here. And once I select that, I hit the run button. And we can see that the test is in running state over here. And just to make sure that it's starting up properly. Yeah, so Chrome was successfully started at LambdaTest, it says. And now we can go ahead and dive into the platform. And we can see that the new data is available on the platform. If I just click on it, we get our test over here. It's untitled right now because we haven't named it, but we can go ahead and change this build name at any time we want. So just for the demonstration purpose, we can quickly go ahead and keep it the same name as the agent. So yeah, so we can see that the test is being run, and if I open it, we can see that it is being triggered on Chrome 71, Windows 10, and this is the resolution, and this is the duration that it's taking, and the start time, the timestamps are there, and the status is also reflecting. So while this test it gets completed, let me take you to an already executed step where I can go ahead and demonstrate the kind of things that you can do with LambdaTest. So let's quickly open a couple of these. All right. So this is one of my previous test execution. And here, as you can see, we can get an entire video recording of the test that ran. And this is something which is pretty amazing about the product. So basically, you can come up, and we've made it easier for our user base to easily debug their issues in case they run into any problem. So for example, I can see all my test names are reflecting over here, all my test cases. And any test case execution, it gets recorded entirely. So I can pretty much run that machine, and I can see how my test has been interacting right over the LambdaTest grid. So we can see that the test is running fine over here. This is a different test, as I said. We're just looking into a previous build right now. And once we have these this recording, other than this, we can also look into different type of logs that are provided here. So we give exception logs in case you run into any exception. Since this test it passed successfully, there is no exception in this case. We also give command logs where you can see step-by-step command execution. And you can, what we basically do is we automatically by default capture these screenshots for you. So you can see at every Selenium command execution, what is the visual UI that your web application is reflecting. And you can go ahead, open these commands and see, all right, this is the response I'm getting. These are on these particular parameters. And then we have network logs, where we can see how the test was executing from a network perspective. So what were the method, whether it was a get method, and were we using a post method, and all these types of information. We can segregate them well. We also have raw Selenium logs in order to help you with any custom reporting framework. So if you need to extend its capability with LambdaTest, you can rely on these raw Selenium logs that are being generated over here. If in case something pops up on your console, if there is anything to be notified, we can rely on these console logs. So if you open any Chrome and if there would be something to relay to us from console perspective, it would be reflected over here. Otherwise, it would be empty. So since the test passed over here, this is not something that we need to be concerned about, right? So other than that, we also have metadata. So this will give you all the details around the screenshots and the video that is being recorded while the test was executing. You can see the test status, what was the test ID, which browsers were included, and which operating system was there, what were the timestamps, and so on and so forth. You can also see the response and which capabilities were passed and what was true, what was false on these capabilities. And that's about everything. So all these logs here basically are here to help you debug things faster. And in case you have any suggestions regarding any of these logs, you can feel free to drop us any message, and we take customers' suggestions very seriously. And we are always looking to help you further on that. So we also have these build. As you can see, this is the build that I opened right now. So this filter can help me select any build that I want, right? So I can pretty much go ahead and see any other build in case I want to. So here you can see the video capability. I declared it as false. So that's why the video was not recorded, which brings me to another pointer. So all these capabilities, in case you are wondering which capabilities LambdaTest is offering and how you can play around with that. So you can go to our capability generator for that. And over here, you can find all the operating systems and browsers that you can spin up on our platform, and which capabilities you need in order to make your tests run over there. So if I want macOS Big Sur to be triggered, I can simply go ahead and select it from here, and I can get the capabilities updated accordingly. And you can even shuffle different languages and see how they are reflecting over there in whichever your favorable language is for Selenium execution. If you go to advanced configurations, you can see that we have capabilities for network logs, console logs that I just reflected. So all these things, if set to true, will reflect information on your LambdaTest dashboard. And similarly, we have step-by-step command screenshots that we just looked into. So if these capabilities are set to true, you can pretty much go ahead and do those, get that data over your LambdaTest dashboard. You can even change your countries in case you want to test from different geolocations, and you want your use case requires you to change your website to specific country IP. You can pretty much go ahead and select whichever country from this list and run your tests over there as well. You can even run your tests on headless mode, and you can do a lot of stuff. So this is something really cool, and you can go ahead and evaluate this better, and it would really help you to get the right capabilities in order to spin up your tests over LambdaTest. So that's about it. And yeah, so we also have this user section over here. So in case you have more than one users in your organization, you can pretty much go ahead and select which tests were spin up by which user of that organization. In my organization, I'm the only user right now, so that's why I'm the only one turning up. We also have these statuses for particular test case in order to help you monitor things better. So you can see and just check if in case you want to have a look at failed test cases, and there wasn't any failed test case in this particular build, But if I just clear this filter from here, and now my filters are cleared, and if I just select the failed now, so I can see that one test case failed at this particular test bed, right? So these statuses over here can help you monitor your dashboard better and can help you maintain sanity towards your automation scripts. Let me quickly run through about what these test statuses stand for. So running and queued is basically how many tests are in the execution will be reflected in the running status. And so this running status is also reflected over here. As you can see, I have 0 by 5 reflected. That means that none of my test cases running right now, because that presumes that so this test case that was in queue previously has now been completed. So none of the test cases running right now, but if it had 2 cases over here, so it would have reflected that number over here. And I have parallel access of 5 sessions. So that's what this stands for. And what by parallel testing I mean is that you can run your script over multiple builds and configurations at the same time, right? So you can run a similar build on different browser and different operating systems at the same time if you are having parallel session access over here. And say, for example, if I have a build which has test, I have a scenario where I need to run test on 10 different builds. So 5 of them will be in the running state, 5 test cases, and the other will be queued for me. So that's what that status was for. And then we also have idle timeout status. So if in case you're not declaring the browser to terminate from the Selenium scripts, we wait for a certain time limit, and after that we close the session as idle timeout. And queue timeout, if this number gets flooded, then that's where we get the queue timeout over here. And all these things, they are reflected over that build as well. So if I open that last build that we were looking, I guess it was this one. Yeah, so you can see that this particular test, it had a queue timeout issue over here. So all these things are reflected everywhere on the dashboard, so you can easily collectively see information about each and every aspect. You can even declare tags in order to orchestrate your builds better and see how these things are spinning. So if I know that I need to run a particular website on Windows 10 from different system, I can go ahead and declare a tag over there. So those tags will be reflected. That's pretty much you can do with the logs. And then there's also analytics. You can go ahead and look at how many tests were run, what were the total tests run, and how many of them passed, how many of them failed. You can select the date filter, and you can even spin up different graphs over here. So you can see your pass failed ratio out of all the tests that were triggered during a particular time period. And you can have it either on test view or on build view. That's entirely up to you. And towards the bottom as well, you can pretty much come up and just see these filters over here as well. All of them, how many of them pass, how many of them fail, all of them will be segregated towards the bottom as well. On the timeline part, you can download a report of any particular test that you've executed, which is really cool. So you can come up over here and you can, for example, I just want this one to be downloaded, and you can download this report and you can explore this stuff from yourself. It's pretty cool, and we've built a lot of capabilities on the platform. It could take me forever if I were to explain each and everything, so I would leave the rest in your hands. Just go around, spin up some test. Before I would like to address another problem. So we were talking about parallel testing. So this goes to show that I was able to run my LEAPWORK test on these particular devices for this particular flow. But what happens if I need to run it, run parallel testing with LEAPWORK and LambdaTest? So in that case, you need to rely on run lists. Over here, if you can simply create a new run list, and you can add flows to it. I have already configured a run list, and I'll just simply go ahead and run the demonstration from there, so we don't end up wasting much time. But we can add as many flows over here as we want, and then we can decide how we want to run them. We can do parallel testing, and we can even do pairwise testing with them. So that's entirely up to us how we want these to be run. And if I could just go to schedule, and I can see, right. So if you can see, I have configured 2 agents over here. So this is the latest agent that we took in consideration. So we can apply that as well. So this particular option will allow you to, perform parallel testing or pairwise testing. So if you have, if you want to check all flows on each agent, you can go with pairwise testing option. And this is the one that will let you, and for parallel, for now, we'll just go ahead, we'll divide the flow on different agents. So one flow is being taken care of by a single agent over here. So we can see that, okay, these are the two run lists that we have over here. And if I just click on run now, I can see the progress bar, and that explains that, my test is running fine. So now I can go to LambdaTest dashboard, and I can see that the new data is available again. If I just click on it, I can see the next build is also here. So we can just rename it to parallel testing for now. And if you look over here, you can see that the browsers have changed automatically, because my flows, depending upon the agents we specified in LEAPWORK, those agents have been specified over here. So we have now a test running on Windows, and another test is running on Mac operating system. So that's the capability that you can really take advantage of parallel testing and trim down your test build significantly to your test build overall time execution. Right. So if, say, for example, you have a build which takes an hour to execute and you don't have parallel tests running, but if you do have parallel tests, and say you have parallel test access of running 2 tests at the same time, you can divide that overall time execution by half. So a test build which will take an hour to execute gets chopped down to 30 minutes. If we have 4 parallel sessions, it will chop down to 15 minutes, and so on. So this is something that you can scale as much as you like, right? So you can take as many parallel sessions as you want. And in case you need help deciding how much parallel sessions are needed for you, so you can take help from our concurrency calculator. So this will help you decide how many parallel sessions are needed depending upon your browsers and devices, and what is your requirement depending upon your test requirements. That's about everything you can do. One thing I would like to point out, we also have Selenium APIs configured, which you can take advantage of in order to extract data in bulk. So you can extract data around builds, sessions, and you can delete a build, you can delete a session. You can do it over here as well, one by one, or you can do it by bulk as well using our particular APIs. So if I would like to delete this particular build, I can simply go ahead and just click on the delete button, and there it goes. So that's about it.
Great insights, Paul.
Yeah, so I guess I took a lot of time here, and we can pretty much go ahead and
there's a lot of cool stuff to show, so appreciate it. I'm just being mindful of time here, and I thought we should probably let some users have some questions.
Right. Let's hop onto the Q&A session, and I'm really sorry it took so long.
No problem. It was great. Thanks for sharing.
All right, I'll stop my screen share for now, and then we can take on the Q&A session.
Okay.
I'll rather just open the PPT there. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, Q&A. Any questions? And I can see some have ticked in. So starting with the first one on the list, is there a way to integrate with third-party email clients to check whether or not, for instance, new mails are popping in using automation? So I guess that question is mostly for the automation side of things. And since LEAPWORK is capable of automating the GUI of both native Windows email clients like Outlook or Windows Mail, or a third-party installable mail client, or for that matter, stuff running in the browser, the short answer is yes. You can open mails resulting from automation and validate the contents of them as part of an automation flow as well. So that's fully supported. Right. Taking the next question then, Paul. I don't know if you have the list as well. If there's something suited for your end of the woods, doesn't seem like it.
Right. So I have a lot of questions here I can see, and just give me a second. Yeah.
Fire away.
So there was a question where we were asked whether the LambdaTest is capable of supporting SPA frameworks like Electron and other frameworks. So yeah, you can pretty much come up and test any front-end development framework, be it Electron or React or Vue. Any framework will go, and we basically provide you the execution platform, so you can come up and see how your web applications are rendering, irrespective of which framework you choose to configure them with. Similarly, on the Selenium part, you can come up and test for any framework or any CI/CD tool. It can be integrated with any CI/CD tool, and we in fact have plugins configured for CI/CD. Certain CI/CD tools, such as we have a plugin for Jenkins, and then we have a Circle CI orb as well. So all these things are basically something that you can take care of while using LambdaTest. And if you, in case you have a particular CI/CD tool which is your favorite, and you feel like we can do something from our end to make your continuous testing and integration process easier, just drop us a message. We are available here 24/7, and just drop us a message and we can get that ready pretty soon from our side.
Then there's a question from Carlos. He's asking if it's possible to configure the test to listen to the network traffic to check if certain data is sent to the tracking platform, such as Google Analytics or a tag manager. Is that something that you can do on LambdaTest side, monitoring the traffic going back and forth?
So basically, as I said, we're just providing an execution platform, and anything related to monitoring on the analytics part, it's not something that is within the scope of our product, not yet at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
So within the LEAPWORK automation flow, you can fetch cookies as an example and see which cookies that are placed on your system as part of automation. You can fetch those cookies and inspect the values and contents of them, both in terms of monitoring what's popping up, and obviously also from a testing perspective, if the expected cookies are landing as intended. So that is so it's not listening to traffic, but certainly checking if tracking is executed at least on a cookie level. Right. Then there's another question related to CI/CD, and Paul, you already, of course, verified that LambdaTest will work seamlessly with any relevant CI/CD/ALM platform, and obviously, from that perspective, it's also highly relevant to just highlight that, of course, LEAPWORK is also catering and supporting the CI/CD agenda fully. So building your flows in LEAPWORK and orchestrating them from, for instance, Jenkins or Azure DevOps or whatever it is that you have chosen as your deploy and test management tool of choice, and obviously also respectively creation of bugs coming out of automation. So your flow is failing, then create the bug. Well, that is obviously also supported from an automation perspective. Okay, so Paul, did you catch any new questions? We have time for one more, I think.
Yes, looks like we have time for one more. And David is asking, what size organization do you work with, Sune? And is it for that is for a small software company looking to automated testing? Is there a level where it makes sense to automate testing versus doing manual testing?
Well, we have a lot of clients, as I mentioned, and they've been with us on a journey. So we have clients big and small, and we have different configurations that will cater for both the enterprise-wide deployment as well as the team or project-specific activities. So please reach out to us either on leapwork.com. There's something popping up there. Write us a mail on sales@leapwork.com. Get in touch, and we'll be happy to set up a plan that's right for you. So thanks for that.
Yeah, so based from our personal experience, it would be best to automate your testing process as early as possible in the stages, and because if you don't do that early, you're basically creating a technical debt. The sooner you have these automation tests running, they're not entirely going to replace manual testing need. You still need manual testing in order to find better edge cases. So consider it this way, that manual testing is automation is just acting as a fuel to burn up the fire, so you can pick out better test cases and better value out of it.
Certainly, and make time for your functional testers, basically, so that they can focus on exactly those types of tests that you mentioned, Paul, the ones either not automated because they're brand new, or because they are, weird corner cases, written with 2FA or whatever it is, which is better suited for manual testing, or types of tests where you have physical devices as part of it. There are many situations where automation is not, an obvious fit. So by automating your regression, by automating the functional types of testing, you free up the time for the functional tester to focus there. At the end of the day, ensuring quality, ensuring the ability to add more capacity and bandwidth into your release pipeline, adding to the number of releases, simply because those tedious tasks are being managed by automation. Cool.
So we had this one last question from one of our viewers, and they're asking, are their passwords safe in LEAPWORK, and how long do these informations are stored on both these platforms, LEAPWORK and LambdaTest? Yeah.
So applying, that's obviously what I did in the demo. You should never do. Never have passwords lying around in Excel sheets. That's for sure. So using passwords, obviously, you can if you use a password building block, then of course it's stored in an encrypted fashion in the database. If you need to use parameterization for your passwords, then of course you can store them securely in like databases or encrypted files, and attach those to your automation flows as well. So there are many ways and many opportunities to treat sensible data in a secure manner with LEAPWORK. In fact, you can create automation flows in LEAPWORK which does not store any data whatsoever associated to the automation run itself within LEAPWORK. So it's also built for things like data privacy and GDPR in mind, to make sure that your data is secured. Right.
Right. So on the LambdaTest perspective as well, anytime you run a new browser configuration, you are bound to get a fresh machine. And as soon as you terminate everything that you've done, it gets erased and nothing is stored basically on our platform. So as I said, it's just an execution platform and everything is secured. Your data, you're the only one who's accessing it. Not even our team can look into what you're doing over there. So I guess we're out on time, but not out on questions. So in case we have missed out on anything, you can please feel free to reach out to us. You can drop comments. We are also, streaming this on YouTube, so you can drop comments over there, or you can reach out to our customer chat support. We offer chat support 24/7, and that's just about it. You can pretty much go ahead and ask the remaining questions over there. So I guess that just about wraps up our webinar, and you can even drop us email in case you have any questions towards support@lambdatest.com. You'll find the entire recording of this webinar over your email, as I said early. In case you've joined later, I'm just repeating the same, and it's there on our YouTube channel. Special thanks to you, Sune, I'm sorry, please go on. Please go on.
No, I was just about to say that if you have any questions for us, and forgive us for not being able to respond to all of them, as Paul said, go to leapwork.com. Our chat window will pop up. Feel free to reach out to our supporters, and they will be ready to answer your questions in detail. So that's an encouragement from my side to go ahead and talk to us, and we're there to listen. So thanks, Paul, for having me and allowing us to be a part of this great story on LambdaTest and LEAPWORK.
Likewise, thank you so much for demonstrating the capabilities of LEAPWORK and explaining how codeless automation paves way for end-to-end automation testing. Thanks everyone for joining us in this webinar. It was lovely connecting with you all. We hope you stay safe, stay healthy, take care, have a great day. Until next time, happy testing.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.